Welcome back to 3 Inquisitive Kids. In this video, we will be looking at multiple ways to solve a ratio word problem. At Doggie's home, a dog store, they sell many kinds of dogs. The number of brown dogs to the number of spotted dogs is the ratio 5:7. If there are 288 dogs at Doggie's home, A, how many brown dogs are there? And B, how many spotted dogs are there? Let's take a look at the first solution. The problem says that Doggie's home, they sell many kinds of dogs. The number of brown dogs to the number of spotted dogs is 5:7. If there are 288 dogs at Doggie's home, how many brown dogs are there and how many spotted dogs are there? Well, let's first go over all the information we have so far. For every 5 brown dogs, there is 7 spotted dogs. That means for every group of dogs that contains 12 dogs, there are 5 brown dogs and 7 spotted dogs in there. Well, let's first focus in on problem A. How many brown dogs are there? Since we're working on A right now, we don't really need the 7 that stands for the spotted dogs. All we need for information is the brown dogs unit and the 288 dogs at Doggie's home. So let's change this ratio into a ratio of just the relationship between the total number of dogs and the unit for the brown dogs. And that would be 5:12. Because over here, 12 is the total number of units. 5 plus 7 equals 12. But remember, the problem asks how many brown dogs are there if there are 288 dogs at Doggie's home, or if there are 288 dogs in total at Doggie's home. So since this, the 12, is the total number of units or dogs at Doggie's home, over here, it also has to be the total. And that total is the 288 dogs. So 288. Remember, this 5:12 is just a smaller version of something to 288. So that means that these two ratios are supposed to be equivalent. And since we know the second unit for the second ratio, 288, we can compare them to the second unit of the first ratio, which is 12. Well, as you can see, we multiplied a 24 to get from 12 to 288. So, to keep the ratio an equivalent ratio, we also have to multiply a 24 on the top. And 5 times 24 is 120. That means that if this 5 represents the amount of brown dogs per 12 dogs, then this 120 also has to represent the amount of brown dogs, but just for the amount of brown dogs in every 288 dogs. So we solved the first problem, and the answer is 120 brown dogs. So let's conclude the first way. We knew that 5:12, which is the number of brown dogs to a total of 12 dogs, is an equivalent ratio of something to 288. So if we know that these two are equivalent ratios, and we know that we multiplied a 24 to get from 12 to 288, we know that we have to multiply a 24 to 5, which will lead us to 120 brown dogs for every 288 total dogs. And the answer for problem A is 120 brown dogs. So for B, we only have to subtract 120 from 288 dogs. And that would give us 168 dogs. Now, let's learn the second solution. First, as always, we collect the information from the problem. The problem tells us that for every single group of dogs that contains 12 dogs, there is 5 brown dogs and 7 spotted dogs. Also, there are 288 dogs at Doggie's home in total. Since problem A and problem B each asks for the amount that a single kind of dog at Doggie's home has, we could just go right on ahead for each problem, only using the information connected to that single amount that we are trying to find. This time, I'm going to start explaining with problem B. How many spotted dogs are there? Right now, we don't have to look at the 5 because that has nothing to do with the amount that we're trying to find right now. Instead, all we need to do is know that for every 12 dogs, there is 7 spotted dogs. And since this 7 comes from the whole total of that 12 dogs in the group, we can write it as 7 to 12, representing 7 spotted dogs. I'm just going to write spot to the total number of dogs in the group. So 7 dogs out of the total 12 dogs. And then there are 288 dogs at Doggie's home. So the 7 out of 12 is a part of 288 dogs. And if we want to find the part of something, it's usually we multiply that fraction to the whole. So let's try that. Over here, 7/12, because remember, 7 to 12 is basically the same thing as the fraction form, 7/12. So we're going to multiply the fraction 7/12 to the whole here, 288 dogs. And then we simplify. Well, we see that over here, we can simplify the fraction. So we can simplify the 12 and it becomes 1, and the 288 becomes 24. So now we have the problem 7 times 24, which gives us an answer of 168. So there's 168 spotted dogs from the 288 dogs at Doggie's home. And that is our answer. So now let's conclude this solution. We only look at one of the units that is connected to the amount that we're trying to find, and then we convert that into its fraction form. And then we multiply the fraction to the whole amount, which is 288. We simplify, and then we get the answer, which is 168. And finally, the third solution, algebra. Yes, we can definitely set an algebraic variable for this problem to solve. First, let's turn the ratio 5/7 into 5x to 7x. Remember, 5/7 is basically a specific time when x in this ratio equals 1, because 1 times 5 and 1 times 7 is 5 and 7, so that's 5/7. So, since we know that the number of brown dogs and the number of spotted dogs make up the whole population of dogs, 288, we can set the function 5x plus 7x equals 288. This here is the number of brown dogs, and over here is the amount of spotted dogs. And now all we need to do is find x, and then plug x back into the ratio over here before. We combine like terms, which would give us 12x equals 288. And then we divide a 12 on both sides, leaving x all alone on the left side of the equation. These two 12s cancel out, leaving us with just x equals 24. But remember, we're not done yet. We need to find the number of brown dogs and spotted dogs. So, since now we know that x equals 24, we have to remember to multiply this back in the ratio. The number of brown dogs is equal to 5 times x, or now 5 times 24, which would give us 120 brown dogs. And the number of spotted dogs would be 7 times 24, and that gives us 168. So our answers are 120 brown dogs and 168 spotted dogs. And now the conclusion for this problem is knowing that the amount of brown and spotted dogs added up together equals the whole total 288 dogs at Doggie's home. And we solve for x, but remember, we always have to remember to plug x back to the ratio to find the exact amount for the answer. So, I hope that you learned something useful from one of these solutions in this video. And if you have any other solutions to this problem, please remember to tell us in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, and at the same time, subscribe to our channel. Come back, and remember, stay inquisitive.